wasn't at all intimidating, I must say. And I didn't write any of the funny stories that we talked about at his service. But I would like to start by saying my name is Stacy Chapin. I'm Ethan's mom. I'm here tonight with my husband, Jim, Ethan's dad, and his brother, Hunter, and his sister, Maisie, who are also vandals. I think you knew he was a triplet, and that they all go here as well. Okay. We want to start by extending our deepest condolences to all the families impacted by this tragedy.
That, my friend, is the sounds of grief. Grief regarding the senseless deaths of 4 college students at Idaho State University. Well, today we're going to talk about what we know now that we did not know almost a month ago in those murders. This and more are what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome to today's podcast where we're going to talk about the Idaho College Murders. Hey, before we get into that, let me say welcome to all the new people to our podcast. Every week we have new people who join us, and we are so appreciative of the thousands of downloads regarding this podcast. Hey, by the way, if you get a chance, please go to your podcast platform, leave us a review. That's both to the new and our wonderful weekly listeners. We appreciate you, and we welcome your input. If you have questions, suggestions, or complaints, please reach out with a shout-out. That's right, you can reach me directly at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. We're going to send you a special digital prize for just reaching out this week. Again, that's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the program, please do go to peacemakernetwork.com. That's peacemakernetwork.com. There you can become a badge, B-A-D-G-E, badge supporter. Oh, you can do that for as low as $3 a month. By doing that, you're not only supporting our program, but you also support our nation's heroes, law enforcement, first responders, and the military. Again, go to peacemakernetwork.com. We're going to list both of those links in our show notes. Well, now it's been almost a month at this recording when Ethan Chapin, age 20, that's his mother you heard earlier in the podcast, Xana Kernoodle, age 20, Kaylee Conkovs, and Madison Mogan, age 20, were brutally murdered. They were brutally murdered in their barely off-campus housing there at Idaho University. And at this time, well, no suspect, no person of interest named by the police. But there are things that we know now that we did not know before. I'm going to attempt to update you on that. And we're going to try to just avoid some of those mere rumors that are running rampant on the internet at this time. But we're going to talk to you a little bit about those rumors and how devastating rumors can be. This story has captured the attention of the nation. And there's one thing that has become quite clear. And my friend, that's the grief and frustration of probably all the parents, but especially one. And this last week and weeks prior, we've heard the frustration with the investigation. Understandably, we know that any parent wants to see the death of their child solved as quick as possible. But Kaylee's father is especially frustrated with how this investigation is going. Here are words from his own parents.
We asked specifically, and they said, we'll try to get that information to you. And they got back to us a day or so later, and they said, we're sorry, we can't give you that information. But then a day later, we saw on the news that it was not targeted, or they think the whole house was targeted. But
I'll cut to the chase. Yeah. Their means of death don't match.
Maddie's
They don't.
and Kaylee's cause of death It does not match based on the autopsy report.
They don't match.
Would indicate that one of them.
He doesn't have to
may
go up
been
the steps. Let's stop playing games, guys. I need somebody to step up and be an alpha. Be somebody to be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just going to say it. It wasn't leaked to me. I earned that. I paid for that funeral. I paid for that. It's my right. You ain't taking that from me.
Calm down.
If you don't want to say nothing, that's your bet. But don't say I'm leaking anything. I paid that bill.
Kaylee's father, well, he has every right to vent, and I can understand and do have great sympathy for him and the families of these precious students. Now, he's also said that he's seeking legal help to get more information from the police, and that he's spoken to a private investigator, that he might engage the services of that investigator to help with the case. Well, in my own experience in investigations, well, a private investigator can either be of help or hindrance. That's all according to how that investigator would interact with the police. Hopefully, if Kaylee's father engages such an investigator, well, hopefully he'll pick someone who has law enforcement expertise, and one who will work with the police and not against the department. However, I must take time to comment on the investigation. You see, this department has been assaulted, spoken down to because of its size. Oh, it's not a large department. Oh, they only have 40 sworn officers. But my friend, may I remind you, this department did as any large-sized department would do. They responded quickly. They cleared the scene. They checked on victims to render aid if necessary, and then immediately locked down the scene. In fact, they locked it up good. Then they immediately put to work resources necessary to get the investigation into high gear. They say they are committed, and I believe them, in leaving no stone unturned. In fact, other than miscommunication to the public that they have, and admitted and owned, but even large departments do that from time to time, I just cannot find a lot of fault in this investigation. The state police, the FBI, are engaged, and they bring the resources necessary to complete this investigation. Even the governor has allotted up to $1 million of funding for the investigation. In fact, my friend, there have been little of any leaks from this investigation. That's unlike investigations in large cities like Washington, D.C., or New York. You see, the mission of the investigation is to catch the bad guy or persons and bring him or them to conviction. My friend, there's a reason the greatest law enforcement agency in the world, the FBI, they constantly comment that they do not comment regarding ongoing investigations. You see, it's my belief that they also have someone who is a liaison with the victim's family, and I believe they're reaching out to them daily. Now, get this, they may not give them the answers they want or need, and certainly are not solving it fast enough for them. Any grieving family members, they want justice right away. But I believe this department is doing what agencies are supposed to do. They are investigating, and they must protect the integrity of the investigation. You see, not only is their mission to catch the perpetrator or perpetrators, but they must bring them to conviction. You see, it is vital that they get these bad people off the street to never kill again. You see, there are just too many talking heads that are talking to get attention. Now, I'm excluding family members from that. Family members have a right to cry out and to voice their concerns. But any experienced investigator knows that you got to be careful what you release to the public. You only release that which is necessary to catch the perp or perps, or that is necessary to protect the public. That's all you release to the public. So, my friend, let's talk about what we know now that we did not know before. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that just right after we share what we call our Crazy Crook Story of the Week. You see, we always share a Crazy Crook story to lighten the load on these heavy, heavy issues. Well, this one, my friend, comes from Georgia. That's right, a Georgia fugitive. Get this. He asked on Facebook why he wasn't on the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office Most Wanted list. He felt slighted. But that inquiry, well, get this. It helped lead police to him. That's what the department said on Thursday. You see, after the sheriff's office posted its most wanted list for November, well, Christopher Spaulding commented, "How about me?" He did that right the day afterwards. And the department replied the next day. He said, "You are correct." The department said, "You are correct. You have 2 warrants, and we're on the way." The department later reshared a screenshot of the exchange, get this, along with Spaulding's arrest photo, writing, quote, "We appreciate your assistance in your capture," unquote. The department thanked the fugitive unit for efficiently arresting Spaulding, who, it said, had 2 arrest warrants for felony violation of probation. Then they went on to add, well, our top 10 is compiled based on the severity of the charges only. But not being on this list does not mean our fugitive unit is not looking for you if you have an active warrant. They could have added, if anybody else there has an active warrant and you want recognition, give us a line. So, my friend, this crazy crook story, who told on his own self, is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, one thing we know now that we did not know before in this terrible, terrible case is that the police are now looking for a mystery car. And that search for that car has now gone international, it seems. You see, the search for the mystery car spotted near Kings Road's house in Moscow, Idaho, where 4 college students were murdered last month, well, now it's going international. Border Patrol agents on the Canadian border, well, they've been told to keep a lookout for that very vehicle that we're talking about. They were told to look out for a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. After that described car, well, it was spotted near a house by a neighbor at 3 a.m. on the day of the murders. You see, that sighting actually matches the time that the University of Idaho student Kaylee, Madison, Ethan, and Xana were stabbed to death in their beds as they were sleeping. And a spokesperson for the Border Control, well, they confirmed to Fox News, they confirmed that agents in the post near Canada were looking out for that vehicle. Agents with the Canada Border Services agents are also monitoring that border for the car. They went on to say that the CBSA works closely with Canadian and U.S. law enforcement partners to ensure the safety and security of our shared border. It includes cooperating on activities such as identifying persons and, I guess at this point, cars. Now, you may have already heard this if you've been keeping up with this case about this mystery car they're looking for. But let me ask you, were you aware that there was another mystery car tied to the case? That's right. Yeah, there was a neighbor in a nearby apartment, a guy by the name of Ian Harsh. You see, he told police that he had seen, now get this, an unfamiliar black SUV. That was at 11:30 p.m. It was parked a few spaces from the front of the murder home on the very night leading to the murder of the students. Hey, incidentally, this neighbor also reported that he heard a yell. He heard a yell coming from the same house about 4 a.m. in the morning. Now, he went on to say he did not really think much of it at the time because, you see, he was used to hearing loud noises and yells because they had get-togethers at that house on lots of the weekends. Now, in all probability, this car has probably already been checked out by the police. It's not related to the murders, or maybe. But we know one thing for sure, they're not looking for the car, but they are looking for that white Hyundai that we told you about before. If you happen to know anything about it, be sure and call their Tipline. We'll list it in our show notes. Now, they are not saying that these are suspects, but they believe they can bring clarity to the case. Whatever that means, I'll let you figure that one out. Now, another new item we know now that we did not know before is that there's another neighbor. Another neighbor has reported that they saw the front door of that house open about 8:30 in the morning. That's the morning of the murders. Now, we do not know if that's related to the murder or not. It could be. Maybe someone on the bottom floor opened it and left it open for a while, not even aware of the murders upstairs. Or maybe it is important. Maybe the perps got out that way. It was interesting to me that on the news, well, the police chief, he seemed surprised by the knowledge of a door being open, saying he had no knowledge about that, even though the person that reported it said they told the police about it. That's a little concerning. To me, that he did not know that that information was reported to the police, well, you got to think about that one. Hey, I want to share something else with you that some did not know and that many thought was unusual. That related to the 911 call where you remember the callers, they reported that they might be somebody that's not conscious. You see, a ton of people related, they can't understand how that could happen, especially with so much blood in these gross murders. How could somebody say they think that somebody's unconscious? Well, one of the fathers, another father, not the father of Kaylee, but another father I heard interviewed, he gave, I think, a probable explanation. He said that his daughter always responded to texts from her friends. And it is his explanation that friends had tried to attempt to contact her when they knew she should be up and answering. Maybe they even knocked on the door. But when they did not get a response after a lot of attempting to contact that person, well, they probably called and reported the person must be unconscious. Well, while this cannot be confirmed at this time, because they've not released that 911 call, it does sound like a plausible explanation to me. How about you? Well, another thing that may have been cleared up is the timeline. That's the timeline, right? You see, there was a 5-hour gap. You see, when we were told that Ethan and Xana had attended a frat party, they gave the time between 8 and 9 p.m. around that time. They said they attended it, but they did not tell us that they attended it for the whole time. So we were not told what happened after the party, if they stayed at the party or if they got home early the next morning. Did they stay there that long, or did they go somewhere else? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Well, we've now been told that most of those at the party said they thought the couple were there the whole time, and that they left the party to go directly home. Now, again, this is not something that the police have confirmed. Remember, they're tight-lipped about this investigation. I told you why they do that. But to me, after they saw the information on this, they appeared no longer to need that information. So I think maybe they're going with the fact that others said they saw them there the whole time. Now, as you know from the previous podcast on that subject, that gap was very concerning to me. Yep, because anybody who had contact with these young students, well, they needed to be interviewed, their actions closely reviewed. So maybe that's cleared up then. Hey, we also received some new information on the lease of the house. That's right. You see, it appears that there was a sixth person on the lease of that house, someone that has not been named at this time. But we're told by authorities that person was not living at the site during the time of the murders, and that there was nothing that connected that person to the case at this time. Hey, some of you will be glad to hear that we do have information on the dog. A lot of people were concerned about that dog. That dog that was there at the house, a dog by the name of Murphy. And I understand how people are concerned. We all love our pets. Well, according to police, well, the dog was found. Murphy was found unharmed. Unharmed, folks, so relax on that one. In another room from the murders. Now, they did not think that Murphy had any contact in the murder sites during or after the murders. And Murphy was taken by animal control. But hold on, he was released back to family members and to people who loved him. So that's some bit of good news in this terrible tragedy. Now, we're also told that some of the forensic evidence has now come back from the lab. But, of course, we're not told the results of that evidence. Well, more than likely, we can all speculate that any DNA that had been processed, some foreign DNA that may have ended up there that has probably already been ran through CODIS. That's where you run that DNA up to see if it matches with anybody in the system. And in all probability, probably that DNA did not reveal a suspect. Maybe it wasn't in CODIS. Because I kind of believe that if somebody had identified the subject, if it had been identified, well, that person would have already been arrested by now, or at least an all points bulletin put out. But don't fear, my friend, that DNA is still valuable, because the next step, well, will be to submit it to a social media platform that houses family DNA, like Ancestry, those type of things. That was the same way, by the way, the Golden State Killer was found, and others have been found that way. But, my friend, remember, all this will take time. Time in ways that an already impatient public just does not understand. You see, they still think, a lot of the public, that this is a, well, I guess say a crime special on TV, where it's all solved in 60 or 90 minutes, or maybe 43 minutes, with standing commercials. Hey, this would probably be a good time to mention the targeted aspect of the case. You see, much has been written about if this was a targeted attack or not. Yeah, the police have pretty well maintained throughout the entire investigation that they do believe it was a targeted attack. But again, this miscommunication did plague the department. They misspoke about that, and they finally issued a statement that kind of, I guess, summarized it. They still stand by the fact that, get this, either the place or certain people were targeted, but would not say which one. That's a little unusual, talking about a place being targeted, isn't it? Well, one way I know that the place could be targeted is that maybe the killer knew about the place. Maybe he knew the layout of the place prior to his entry. He had certain knowledge that said he had been there before, or he knew all about it. Therefore, he targeted that place to do his deeds. It was a very high-risk crime. 6 people there. Whichever, the police are still not sharing why they believe either the place or the people were targeted, but they say it was a targeted, quote, targeted attack. They said, well, you're just going to have to trust us on that. Now, from the interview with Kaylee's father, well, much of the internet world, well, they're picking up that it was perhaps Kaylee that was the targeted one from the remarks. He talked about the wounds, Kaylee and Madison being different. But let me ask you, he did not say which one was targeted. Everybody just kind of surmised and thought upon their own selves that he had to be talking about Kaylee. But let me ask you a question. What if it was Madison instead of Kaylee? And I'm going to tell you about how one of the rumors actually supports that. We're going to talk about those rumors, yep. We're not going to dwell on them. We're not going to give them any really credibility, but we are going to talk about one of the rumors, and one of the rumors that says maybe it wasn't Kaylee that was targeted. We're going to do that right after we take time to recognize our courageous citizen of the week. We always like to point out those citizens who have great courage. This one, well, the mother of a boy who was rescued from abuse. Well, she will spend nearly a year in jail for her part in the case. And she was rescued, now get this. Right here in Central Florida, we have a Orlando server. That's right, a server. In a restaurant is our courageous hero. You see, Christian Swan, that's the mom, now she faces abuse charges. She actually accepted a plea in the case. Adjudicated guilty on aggravated child abuse, failure to report child abuse by a household member. She was sentenced to 364 days in jail. She will serve 14 years probation upon release, and she cannot have contact with her son or any other minors. You see, according to the police, there was a server, Mrs. Carvalho. Mrs. Carvalho was a server at Mrs. Potato Restaurant in Orlando, Florida. She noticed the boy when the family of 4 sat down on New Year's Day. That was last year, of course. Police said a man at the table, Timothy Lee Wilson, well, he did not allow the 11-year-old boy to order any food. But our waitress, our server, Carvello, noticed the child had bruises on his face and arms. She wrote the little boy a note. "Do you need help? Okay?" Held it up to the boy while standing behind the man so he couldn't see it. I wrote another sign asking him if he needs help, and that's when he nodded yes. And so Miss Carvello, she's being held as a hero after coming to the rescue of an 11-year-old boy who, according to Orlando police, was abused at home. When police were able to talk to the little boy, he told them about, some really terrible things. He had been struck with a wooden broom, handcuffed, tied to a large moving dolly, had all sort of different stages of bruising, so it wasn't just like one incident. That's what Detective Lawler said in his own response to these charges. It was ongoing abuse and torture. And Wilson, the boy's stepfather? Well, thank God, he was sentenced to life in prison after he was convicted on false imprisonment, aggravated child abuse with a weapon, aggravated child abuse and child neglect charges. But Swan, the mom, she admitted to knowing about the abuse, and she was arrested again on charges of child neglect. So this brave server at a restaurant in Orlando is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Courageous Citizen of the Week. All right, now let's get back to our main focus with this terrible story of 4 college students killed in their sleep. Well, I guess my friend has produced what some people, and this is a colorful word, they're calling it a Columbo Fest. A Columbo Fest. Remember Columbo, the detective who solved crimes? Well, it's called a Columbo Fest of rumors and internet sleuths. Now, while some of that can be good and helpful, there's also some of it that can be cruel and destructive. For instance, there was a neighbor who was interviewed by the news media. Well, he gathered such a response from people online that he got death threats. Yet there was no evidence at all that he was involved in the murders. He just did not come across the media right. And my friend, I do agree, we have a right to free speech, but we do not have a right to abuse others. And also, while we have a right for free speech, we also have the responsibility to speak truthfully and with substance. You see, repeating rumors for rumor's sake, or clickbait, is not responsible speech for a person or a news agency, and my friend, that includes podcasts like this one. Now, you probably know by now, the news has reported about a tweeter, the tweeter who had tweeted that one of the murder victims was responsible for the suicide of an ex-roommate. That ex-roommate was bullied. Some have even speculated that that person was one who was targeted along with the elitist students. I'm not going to mention the name of the person they say was targeted because of bullying, because while I read this story on a news outlet, I could not find corroboration of the story. Now, I do know that the young lady committed suicide, and of course we're all sad about that. But I want to urge you as a listener to be careful in taking in such rumors. It is very sad that Hannah Cheer took her own life. Let's do mourn with her family and friends, but let's not speculate at this time, since there's no evidence that tied bulleting to these murders. Then there are plenty of such speculation, like the hoodie guy that was seen acting in a suspicious way at the food truck. That's where Kaylee and Madison stopped off on their way home before the murders. But according to the police, well, he's been ruled out, even though there are a lot more rumors about him floating around. Again, do not take speculation without evidence. Now, the police have already said that there are some people who have been ruled out that have been re-questioned. Some up to 3 times. You see, when information becomes available, there's always the possibility that some were ruled out can turn out with additional information to be a part of an investigation. But my friend, do not outrun the evidence in your own mental pursuit of the perpetrator or perpetrators of this horrible crime. And so, we at Charlie Crimebuster, we're going to do our very best to keep you informed about this case, but we want to talk to you about real evidence as it comes to pass. My friend, this investigation is ongoing, and no, it has not gotten cold. There's a whole lot of stuff being done scientifically, more than you realize digitally, to get the monster or monsters responsible for these crimes, even to the point of geo-tracking cell phones in the vicinity. And along with other investigative tools, both new and old tools, will be utilized in this ongoing investigation. I believe they're going to find the person that did this. I pray they find the person or persons that did this. So if you know anything about this case, say something. Do call that tip line 208-883-7180. That's 208-883-7180, and share your knowledge. We'll list that along with other important information in our show notes. So until this time, next time, this is old Charlie here, reminding you, hey, be safe, be alert. The life you save, it may be your very own.